Leading up to the Peru trip, I was pretty anxious. This was my first international mission trip, and I expected to be pushed out of my comfort zone with new foods, a different language, and other uncomfortable situations.
There was a lot on my mind headed into this trip. I barely knew any Spanish, and the Passport Health Clinic warned me of many diseases that I had never even heard about. After this appointment, I figured I'd better just get a one-way ticket because there was no way I was going home.
After 2 long days of travel, we safely arrived in Tarapoto. When we got on the ground, we were instantly met with kindness and hospitality from the Peruvian brothers and sisters we would be serving alongside. Even as many of us were exhausted and running on no sleep, it was an instant boost of energy and encouragement to see their excitement about the work at hand.
Our team spent almost all of our time in Peru serving with La Comunidad Bíblica de Tarapoto, a local church that meets at the home of Pastor Delwyn Fowler. And it was such a blessing to spend so much time serving alongside this group of believers because we were able to build relationships with them and authentic friendships with them, even in the just short 2 weeks that we had.
One of the first things we did when we got to Peru was host a young adults conference covering the book of Philippians. This was such a rewarding experience, not just because of the study, but because of the opportunity to worship in song, to play games, and to share meals with brothers and sisters that are following Jesus at the same stage of their life as our group is.
We had the opportunity to host a kids club and to evangelize in different parts of the city. It could be very overwhelming when I could barely understand what was being said, but I quickly realized that if I just attempted to communicate with the Peruvians, then God could use that for good conversation.
It was at the youth camp where we served the second weekend that there was a really big wake-up call for me. When we first arrived at camp, it was announced that a close friend of many of the campers had suddenly passed away at a young age. We didn't know this person at all, yet as our brothers and sisters there grieved the loss of their friend Brian, it was one of the most painful things I'd seen in a really long time. But seeing these Christians in Peru grieving over their loss and yet recognizing God's sovereignty through it all and not losing confidence in that reminded me that our feelings have meaning in our faith. And they have meaning because our trust in God gives meaning to them.
One of the most encouraging things about this trip was seeing people share their faith firsthand. On a bus ride home back from camp, Sergio, a college student, was sitting at the front of the bus with the driver and was faithfully sharing the gospel with him. No time is wasted with this man. When he is not sharing the gospel, he is serving and building up others. I am thankful God showed me this through Sergio. If I desire to faithfully serve and share the gospel overseas, I first need to be faithfully sharing the gospel and serving where I am now.
The thought of going up to a random stranger and sharing the gospel is still pretty daunting, but I feel more encouraged to do so because of this trip. I hope that God will continue to work in me and that I will not let fear get in the way of sharing the gospel with someone in class or on the street like I did in Peru.
While in Peru, I was constantly reminded of the message in Matthew 7, that everyone who hears the words of Jesus and does them builds their house on the rock. The group of believers in Peru is serious about studying the Bible and storing the Word in their hearts, but that's not where it stops for them. They take what they've learned about Jesus and they apply it to every aspect of their lives as they meet the needs of their neighbors, engage with their communities, and share the gospel with the lost around them. This was such a convicting but necessary reminder for my own life, that I would not just be a hearer of the word, but also a doer, as Jesus commands in Matthew 7 and as the Peruvians lived out so faithfully.
Seeing the Peruvians finding and retaining their hope in such a tragic situation reminded me that it's at the cross where joy and sorrow meet. And this trip brought me back to living my life in light of that. And just like when I first came to Christ, I left completely changed.
Thank you for giving. Thank you for sending us. Thank you for praying for us. And thank you for the opportunity that we got to go on this trip. And we just look forward to seeing all the fruit that is to come in the future.